Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 62nd episode of In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is the 5th of August, and my name is George Glass, an Associate Managing Director in the Cyber Threat Intelligence team. Joining me today from the CTI team are Dave Truman, Ryan Hicks, and Sarah Becker. As always, we'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's get into the situation report. In connection to the joint advisory released last week on KTA 116, also known as Andriel, the US Department of Justice has indicted Rim Jong-hyuk, a North Korean military intelligence operative. Hyuk is said to be part of the group that deployed Maui ransomware to extort US healthcare institutions. The ransom payments were laundered through Hong Kong, which were then used to fund further espionage operations. The Department of Justice is offering a reward of up to $10 million for information that could lead to Hyuk's arrest or the identification of other members of the group. Next is a new report regarding ongoing PlugX malwares. PlugX is a remote access Trojan attributed to China-linked threat actors KTA 038, KTA 039, and KTA 108. It first appeared in 2008 and has continuously evolved its remote capabilities. The Kroll been covering PlugX recently as well. The Trojan mainly propagates through infected USB devices, bypassing air-gapped networks. In 2023, researchers were able to acquire an IP address linked to PlugX command and control servers. The researchers were able to sinkhole the server and identify millions of infected workstations. Using this information, French judicial authorities, in collaboration with Europol, have launched a disinfectant operation of compromised systems. The authorities are using a disinfection solution which takes advantage of a built-in self-delete function within PlugX. However, infected USB drives must be connected to a workstation to be included in the disinfection. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, please get in touch with us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. So let's get into the rest of today's briefing. We're going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. I will be covering a vulnerability affecting VMware ESXi and a geopolitical update regarding a large prisoner swap between the West and Russia that occurred last Thursday. Ryan will be taking us through a Proofpoint misconfiguration, which facilitated spam campaigns. Dave will be covering GULOADER in this week's Malware Spotlight. And finally, last but by certainly no means least, Sarah will be taking us through this week's Ransomware Roundup. So let's talk about this ESXi vulnerability. A vulnerability was identified by Microsoft and submitted to VMware regarding a insecure by default vulnerability, which is being tracked by VMware as CVE 2024-37085. It's got a CVSS score of 6.8, making it a medium. And essentially a threat actor with sufficient AD permissions can gain access to an ESXi host at the admin level, even if the ESXi host was previously not configured to use AD for user management. And this is done by either recreating the AD group ESX admins, adding a compromised user to that group, and then using that to log in. And this occurs even if the ESX admin was previously deleted from AD. This has now been addressed by VMware, but interestingly, Kroll has observed this TTP for years, and although it wasn't really considered a vulnerability as such, just an insecurity by default, of course, threat actors do attempt to add themselves to privileged groups. In this case, Kroll has evidence of many ransomware groups, including Lockbit, Akira, Black Bastard, and Fog ransomware more recently, using this technique. Indeed, the prolific threat actor Basset Lord, or also known as Fisheye, published a set of manuals for use in ransomware attacks where this specific information is shared in those manuals. And Kroll can confirm that threat actors have been using this technique since 2021 and have robust detections against it. Next, let's talk a bit of a geopolitical update. So since late July, Craw's been tracking OSINT signals suggesting there would be a large prisoner swap to take place between Russia and the West. This is likely one of the largest exchange of prisoners since the Cold War. The swap eventually took place on August the 1st. And in the prisoner selection, Russia selected mostly prisoners that had relation to cybercrime and cyber espionage activity. Notably, Vladimir Dunayev, who built and operated the TrickBot botnet, Roman Selezev, aka Track2, Bulba, or NCUX, was associated with the Carda SU organization, an identity theft and credit card fraud ring. Selezev sold members such a large volume of that product that he created an automated website. And lastly, Alexander Vinnik, operator of the Bitcoin exchange BTC-E, handled transactions for KTA 007, also known as Fancy Bear, and Locky ransomware. So a significant amount of cyber capability has indeed been returned back to Russia last week. And that's it for my updates today. I will go now to Ryan to talk to us about this Proofpoint server relay. Over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, everyone. Proofpoint reported last week that they had identified a spam campaign that took advantage of an email routing feature in their servers to deliver spam campaigns that appear to be from legitimate organizations. A number of well-known large organizations were spoofed, including Nike, Disney, ESPN, and IBM. Sorry. It's worth noting that the campaign had not occurred as part of a breach or compromise of the organizations. However, it was an abuse of a legitimate Proofpoint feature. The campaign began with the threat actor sending emails from a rogue Microsoft 365 tenant or number of tenants that the actor had created. And these emails were sent to Proofpoint's relay servers where email signing took place, further mimicking the spoofed organization. And the signing that took place was the domain keys identified mail, so DKIM, and sender policy frameworks, SPF, which means that the emails were much more likely to pass through spam filters when it reached the victim. And when the spam emails were echoed back and delivered, the emails appeared to have come from the spoofed organization, including the victim would have seen what appeared to be the legitimate domain of those organizations, as well as the kind of logo in the email. So visually, very much looking like it came from the organization because of the sign that took place. The goal of the campaign appeared to be sort of for financial gain, whereby the phishing links redirected the user to a payment site, typically suggesting that they had expired subscriptions to whatever organization that they were spoofing, and therefore the phishing link would allow them to sort of enter their credit card details and obviously gather them from there. And Proofpoint noted that they quickly engaged multiple teams to remediate and contact supported and support impacted customers. They also stated that they're developing a process for new customers to ensure that they are correctly configured to prevent that kind of abuse in future. And these updates just continue to raise the importance of ongoing vigilance required by users to identify multiple warning signs of phishing emails and not just sort of rely on a single sign, such as just checking if the correct domain is present. So looking out for multiple things that could suggest that it's a spam or phishing email. That's all I have. Back to you, George.
Thank you very much, Ryan. And now we go over to Dave to talk about this week's malware spotlight, GULOADER. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you. GULOADER is a commodity loader available commercially from an Italian-based company and currently marketed under the name CloudEye. The loader was originally sold on hacker forums under the name DarkEye Protector. GULOADER has a heavy focus on anti-analysis. The loader has evolved over time, starting as a Visual Basic PE file with an embedded payload, and has had several iterations, including heavily obfuscated Visual Basic scripts and PowerShell scripts. Recent versions make use of the null-soft scriptable install system. GULOADER is commonly seen distributing other commodity malware, often remote access Trojans such as Agent Tesla and Formbook. GULOADER is usually executed by victims of phishing. Once initiated, it will perform checks to detect debugging or automated analysis, and download, decrypt, and execute the payload, which is hosted on either a website or cloud hosting such as OneDrive. The encrypted payload makes it hard for cloud hosting providers to detect the malicious nature of the payload. GULOADER is built using an easy-to-use GUI building tool, which allows for customizations such as random name auto-run keys, or specifying URLs to payloads hosted on the clouds or on web servers. Thank you. George?
Thank you very much, Dave. Really appreciate that. And lastly, we go to Sarah for this week's Ransomware Roundup. Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, George. Our first story for the roundup is a new ransomware group called Lynx. They emerged last month, July, and there's rumors of the group utilizing Inc. ransomware source code. This operation, they also created a data leak site that most other ransomware groups are known for. And currently at the time, we do see 2 victim postings. They also have news updates, just kind of blog type style. So on July 24th, the group posted a press release on their data leak site giving just kind of a brief introduction of the group and what motivates them. So they claim that their core motivation is financial incentives, and they do have a strict policy against targeting hospitals, government institutions, nonprofit organizations, since they're saying that these institutes play important roles in society. We've seen other groups, state those claims, but then kind of go back on that word. So we'll see, if that group kind of sticks to these policies. In their press release, they kind of continue with saying that they have an operational model that encourages dialogue and resolution instead of quote unquote chaos and destruction. And they do want to foster an environment where businesses can engage in constructive problem solving that will lead to better outcomes. So to end their statement, they also said, in pursuing these goals, our commitment is to uphold professional standards that prioritize transparency and communicated and targeted interactions, thus reinforcing a framework where commerce and cybersecurity can coexist without spilling into unnecessary conflict or harm. So it seems this ransomware group is very professional in, their cyber attacks and negotiations so far. And then with our next story, just a quick overview of researchers seeing that the largest ransomware payment has been revealed, and that was of $75 million. And this was from a Fortune 50 company, and that was paid to the ransomware group known as Dark Angels. The victim organization that made the payment is unidentified at this time. Dark Angels is a group that came about in 2022, and they're known for their targeted approaches, typically attacking a single large company and high demand ransom payments, with a previous high profile attack that happened in September 2023, and that ransom demand was $51 million. So according to researchers, once Dark Angels has identified and compromised a target, it selectively decides whether to encrypt the company's files. In most cases, the Dark Angels group steals a vast amount of information, typically in the range of 1 to 10 terabytes. For large businesses, the group has exfiltrated between 10 to 100 terabytes of data, which can take days or, weeks to transfer. So cybersecurity specialists are raising concerns over, these ransomware payments becoming, exceedingly large. And they're anticipating that, maybe other threat actors might start adopting those same extortion tactics. So it is recommended to just keep continuing best practices just to mitigate these types of risks. That is all for me, George.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Some really interesting information there. And thank you to Dave and Ryan for also presenting today. That's all we have for this week. If you have any questions or comments, please do reach out to us using cti@kroll.com. That's cti@kroll.com. Thank you, everybody, and have a great day.